If you want to make sure you stay in good conversation, you gotta tune in to Coffee and Conversation with Colette. That's me, Thursday mornings from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. on the only station, WHPR TV 33. See you soon.
Rise and shine. Y'all, it's like the freeze frame. Hey. Amazing Friday to you. Rise and shine up and at 'em. This is the day that the Lord has made. We're going to stay in rejoicing and remain glad in it. You're officially tuned in to Coffee and Conversation with Collette, and I am Collette. You all know I do my curtsy because that's what I do. You know, that's what I do. That's the reverence that I have to show you. Because again, as I state every week, every Thursday and Friday, that you could be anywhere. And I know that you could be doing anything, but you make the conscious decision to stay live, tuned in, whether it is on our website, our app, Roku, Comcast 91, TV 33, into WHPR, because you want to talk. And you know that there's more than one way to have a conversation. And maybe just because I might amuse you a little bit, you start off with Coffee and Conversation with Colette. So I pray that you have your beverages. I pray that you are ready and officially engaged in the day, however this station has met you. Because today, we're going to talk about it. And I see all the lines are lit. Thank you all so much. Let me give you the call-in numbers if you don't have them again. 313 868-0342 or 313-868-0351, 313-868-4336. And I just have a couple of housekeeping items, chores, if I can. Wanted to start off a great good morning to my Houston family. An extra great, amazing morning to my Aunt Jeanette. I am her favorite niece. That, self-proclaimed, that's what I say. The other cousin, sorry. In your miraculous recovery, in your continued growth, and God's continued grace and mercy in your life. And just so thankful that in these times we know from which our strength comes, and that is what we lean on. And a great, amazing morning to my parents, and a special amazing good morning to, drum roll, and I'm going to get the full name because I call her Mother Pearl at church, New Destiny Christian Fellowship. But Mother Pearline Jackson had an amazing 82 birthday. 82 years young birthday on yesterday. And she's just a phenomenal woman who has her energy and her spirit, and there's just a reverence about her. And she has made such a difference in my life and the life of my family in this short period of time that we have had the pleasure of meeting her acquaintance on this earth. And I just want to say happy birthday to you. Did you get my birthday song? I called and sang happy birthday. Did you get that yesterday? I hope you did, because I know you had a lot of stuff going on, but I hope you got my song. And so great, amazing day to you. And then, of course, the day before, her son, Leverett, Quintus Leverett, belated happy birthday. We celebrated a birthday with you as well. So, that's what it's about. It's celebrating all these special days. And then I have a great friend that's off of the West Coast, and his birthday was yesterday as well. So great birthday to you. So for all of you, if you're celebrating a birthday today, or if it was in this month of March, happy birthday to you. I pray that on these days that we are specific about what is important to us on the birthday. This is the day that you came into the world to make it different. This is the day that you were birthed into this environment to say, I'm going to be the change that I want to see. I'm going to be the shining light. I'm going to be the best me that I can be in this physical form. And I pray that that's what you take and receive as you usher in yet those intros into the new year of an age escalating, going up, because it makes a difference, because not everyone got here. Let me just say that. So a lot of times, again, we have to shape the narrative. And so that's where we're going to go again today. We're shaping the narrative. I'm going to pick back up on the conversation yesterday because I asked us to revisit the City of Detroit State of the City Address by Mayor Mike Duggan. A lot of you had such great insight. That's why I love you all. You called in, gave us some things to think about. Some people said they wouldn't even waste their time with the shenanigans because it wasn't relevant. It still is not the realistic depiction of where we are as a city. Another caller came in and gave the factual dynamics of where we are with regards to population, as Mayor Duggan tried to state that in his speech about the loss of some 244,000 individuals is actually the size of some small cities within the state of Michigan, and what that looks like for us. But we all thought it was interesting and how the focus now is education. And again, it's not the education for the masses, it is the education for the children. And I believe that when we walked away from the conversation yesterday, we agreed that the education can't just start with the children. It has to be for the complete body. It has to be for the parents. It has to be for the adults, the stewards of the children. And the truth be told, it just needs to be for everyone who comes into the lives of our children and our communities. Because if you don't have whole adults, it has an impact on you having whole children. Do you get that? And yes, there are circumstances where the child can come against all odds, but I promise you there has been someone in their lives that helped shape them. And if you all didn't recall, yesterday was International Women's Day. So I venture to say that in addition to the men that play a part, and whether it is the actual dads, the grandpas, the uncles, the family friends, the cousins, there are some very strong, influential women that have had impacts one way or another. Because realize that even when you are not your best, there is still an impact. Even when you don't know, there is still an impact. Even when you don't say, there is still an impact. And so at the top of the next hour, we're going to talk about, because that's going to be our Freestyle Friday segment, and I'm going to share with you an article about the worst countries to be in as a woman. So they have the top 10 as the worst and the top 10 as the best, and of course the United States is not listed. But we're going to get into that at the top of the 8 o'clock hour. So in continuation to the conversation yesterday, I'm going to give us this intro. No, this is what I'm going to do. If you notice, you see I'm trying to be technologically advanced, and I'm not using the laptop as much. Have you noticed that? I was going to come off to us with a different quote for today, and I'm going to pull that up for us because I thought it was just really interesting. But before I do, this is just I'm going to lead in with this because I just have to. So listen, there was an article in yesterday's paper. 2 of Detroit's most powerful men got together. Here's what they said. And I need to read it to you, so indulge me for about a minute, okay? The article was by John Gallagher, Detroit Free Press, and it states, quote, 2 of Detroit's most powerful men traded quips and compliments Thursday and offered upbeat perspectives on Detroit's revival at the latest Pancakes and Politics event. Sponsored by the Michigan Chronicle and held at the Detroit Athletic Club, the early morning event showcased Mayor Mike Duggan and Quicken Loans founder and chair Dan Gilbert. If they failed to make any dramatic news, their friendly chat before the sellout audience did highlight the current state of thinking on the city's leadership on Detroit's revival. Their message: Detroit has made tremendous progress but needs to make more, especially in its neighborhoods among the long-time residents who may feel excluded from the downtown revival. Citing the city's balanced budgets and progress on street lighting and other improvements, Duggan said, "We're just going to keep plugging away." And Gilbert, perhaps the city's biggest booster, said Detroit gains new fans each time someone actually visits the city and sees all that is happening. We've just got to get them here and they're on board. Duggan echoed that message. Detroit, he said, is a city where you can build your dreams. Of the many topics touched on during the discussion, the touchy question of talent inevitably came up. Amazon, as you all know, recently left Detroit off of its list of 20 finalist cities for its second quarter. The low scores of Detroit schools remain a concern now, as it has for years. Gilbert challenged the notion that Detroit lacks talent. He cited an example of Ivy League students from universities including Brown and Yale that come to Detroit for internships with his companies. And he maintained that the city offering good opportunities will attract all the talent it needs to move from where we are and afar. It needs from afar. I'm just going to leave that right there. Let me just add the last sentence, okay? Duggan, while admitting Detroit still has work to do, cited an oft-heard comment from young people who moved to the city. Detroit is big enough to matter to the world, but small enough that you can matter to the city. Did that sink in? And I just want you all to know, maybe in your comments, you need to give me a little clarity, because I read that to mean that the only way we're going to have vibrant talent is if we ship them in. And so then once they get here, they'll realize how great we are, and then they'll want to stay, and then that will make our talent pool what it is, versus, let me say it again, versus creating the energies and the excellence in education for the talent that is here, that is still here, for the young people that are here, the adults that are here, in order to move into these positions. Did you all? I needed that to sink in for a minute, because as the rhetoric now is, we have to sit and support the longtime residents of Detroit, but no one is still talking about how we do that. And I asked you all on yesterday that then again, if you understand the importance of your voice through your vote, then what plan of action do you have if you're trying to hold people accountable for your successes? Because it seems yet again that now we've created this new education model that doesn't work. And maybe I need to teach us, bring in some information about the establishment of the educational system. Because the only educational system that was established for Black people was slavery. That was presented and quoted by Charlotte Eisbert. I'm going to introduce her more into the conversations lately. She had worked in the Department of Education under Reagan, a Caucasian woman who took on the mantra of really understanding the educational system, and so much so has created a report. It's a 2-hour documentary, and I'm going to introduce that into the conversation on next week to let you know how the political powers that be, again, created education not for Black folk, because our only education was to be slaves, and for everyone else, it was to tell you what to do, for you to regurgitate information, so for you to not have to think. You just rely on what is told to you, and so you believe that to be true. Are you working? Are you going? You see where I'm going with this? Because that has been the essence of our educational system. And so yet again, in the city of Detroit, we see it failing and failing and failing and failing. But in our Cat Williams, I'm trying and I'm trying and I'm trying. The wrong people are trying, because the conversation is not for it to be successful. The conversation is for you to buy in something else to do that puts a Band-Aid but doesn't, heal. I want you to get it. So this is what we're going to do. Callers, I need you to engage me one more 10 minutes, okay? All the lines are lit. I'm going to get to you. I want us to look at this clip. It's a TED Talks clip. It talks about education, public schools specifically, that I think is going to help you in how we speak this morning. So let's go to the clip. Work with us. It's about 10 minutes. I want you to see it. Then we're going to go to the lines. Don't go anywhere. Remember, we have 2 hours today. So I want to make sure everyone is a part of the conversation. So let's enjoy the clip.
I want to talk to you about my kids. Now, I know everyone thinks that their kid is the most fantastic, the most beautiful kid that ever lived, but mine really are. I have 696 kids, and they are the most intelligent, inventive, innovative, brilliant, and powerful kids that you'll ever meet. Any student I've had the honor of teaching in my classroom is my kid. However, because their real parents aren't rich, and I argue because they are mostly of color, they will seldom get to see in themselves the awesomeness that I see in them. Because what I see in them is myself, or what would have been myself. I am the daughter of 2 hardworking, college-educated African-American parents who chose careers as public servants. My father, a minister, my mother, an educator. Wealth was never the primary ambition in our house. Because of this lack of wealth, we lived in a neighborhood that lacked wealth, and henceforth a school system that lacked wealth. Luckily, however, we struck the educational jackpot in a voluntary desegregation program that buses inner city kids, Black and brown, out to suburban schools, rich and white. At 5 years old, I had to take an hour-long bus ride to a faraway place to get a better education. At 5 years old, I thought everyone had a life just like mine. I thought everyone went to school and were the only ones using the brown crayons to color in their family portraits, while everyone else were using the peach-colored ones. At 5 years old, I thought everyone was just like me. But as I got older, I started noticing things like, how come my neighborhood friends don't have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to a school that's an hour away? How come I'm learning to play the violin while my neighborhood friends don't even have a music class? Why were my neighborhood friends learning and reading material that I had done 2 to 3 years prior? See, as I got older, I started to have this unlawful feeling in my belly, like I was doing something that I wasn't supposed to be doing, taking something that wasn't mine, receiving a gift, but with someone else's name on it. All these amazing things that I was being exposed to and experiencing, I felt I wasn't really supposed to have. I wasn't supposed to have a library, fully equipped athletic facilities, or safe fields to play in. I wasn't supposed to have theater departments with seasonal plays and concerts, digital, visual, performing arts. I wasn't supposed to have fully resourced biology or chemistry labs, school buses that brought me door to door, freshly prepared school lunches, or even air conditioning. These are things my kids don't get. You see, as I got older, while I was grateful for this amazing opportunity that I was being given, there was this ever-present pang of, but what about everyone else? There are thousands of other kids just like me who deserve this too. Why doesn't everyone get this? Why is a high-quality education only exclusive to the rich? It was like I had some sort of survivor's remorse. All of my neighborhood friends were experiencing an educational train wreck that I was saved from through a bus ride. I was like an educational Moses screaming, "Let my people go to high-quality schools." I'd seen firsthand how the other half was being treated and educated. I'd seen the educational promised land, and I could not for the life of me justify the disparity. I now teach in the very same school system from which I sought refuge. I know firsthand the tools that were given to me as a student, and now as a teacher, I don't have access to those same tools to give to my students. There have been countless nights when I've cried in frustration, anger, and sorrow because I can't teach my kids the way that I was taught, because I don't have access to the same resources or tools that were used to teach me. My kids deserve so much better. We sit and we keep banging our heads against this term, achievement gap, achievement gap. Is it really that hard to understand why these kids perform well and these kids don't? I mean, really. I think we've got it all wrong. I think we, as Gloria Ladson-Billings says, should flip our paradigm and our language and call it what it really is. It's not an achievement gap. It's an education debt for all of the foregone schooling resources that were never invested in the education of the Black and brown child over time. A little-known secret in American history is that the only American institution created specifically for people of color is the American slave trade. And some would argue the prison system, but that's another topic for another TED Talk. The public school system of this country was built, bought, and paid for using commerce generated from the slave trade and slave labor. While African Americans were enslaved and prohibited from schooling, their labor established the very institution from which they were excluded. Ever since then, every court case, educational policy, reform has been an attempt to retrofit the design rather than just stopping and acknowledging we've had it all wrong from the beginning. An oversimplification of American educational history, all right? Just bear with me. Blacks were kept out, you know, the whole slavery thing. With the help of philanthropic white people, they built their own schools. Separate but equal was okay. But while we all know things were indeed separate, they were in no ways equal. Enter Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas in 1954. Legal separation of the races is now illegal. But very few people pay attention to all of the court cases since then that have undone the educational promised land for every child that Brown versus Board intended. Some argue that today our schools are now more segregated than they ever were before we tried to desegregate them in the first place. Teaching my kids about desegregation, the Little Rock Nine, the Civil Rights Movement is a real awkward moment in my classroom when I have to hear the voice of a child ask, if schools were desegregated in 1954, how come there are no white kids here? These kids aren't dumb. They know exactly what's happening and what's not. They know that when it comes to schooling, Black lives don't matter, and they never have. For years, I tried desperately to cultivate in my kids a love of reading. I'd amassed a modest classroom library of books I'd accumulated from secondhand shops, thrift stores, attics, you know. But whenever I said those dreadful words, take out a book and read, you'd think I'd just declared war. It was torture. One day, after I'd heard about this website called Donors Choose, where classroom teachers create wish lists of items they need for their classroom, and anonymous donors fulfill them, I figured I'd go out on a limb and just make a wish list of the teenager's dream library. Over 200 brand new books were sent to my room, piece by piece. Every day, there were new deliveries, and my kids would exclaim with glee, "Oh, this feels like Christmas!" Then they'd say, "Miss Sumner, where did these books come from?" And then I'd reply, "Strangers from all over the country wanted you to have these." And then they'd say, almost suspiciously, "But they're brand new." To which I'd reply, "You deserve brand new books." The whole experience hit home for me when one of my girls, as she peeled open a crisp paperback, said, "Miss Sumner, you know, I figured you bought these books, because you teachers are always buying us stuff. But to know that a stranger, someone I don't even know, cares this much about me, it's pretty cool." Knowing that strangers will take care of you is a privilege my kids aren't afforded. Ever since the donation, there has been a steady stream of kids signing out books to take home and then returning them with the exclamation, "This one was good." Now, when I say take out a book and read, kids rush to my library. It wasn't that they didn't want to read, but instead, they'd gladly read if the resources were there. Institutionally speaking, our public school system has never done right by the Black and brown child. We keep focusing on the end results or test results and getting frustrated. We get to a catastrophe and we wonder, how did it get so bad? How did we get here? Really? If you neglect a child long enough, you no longer have the right to be surprised when things don't turn out well. Stop being perplexed or confused or befuddled by the achievement gap, the income gap, the incarceration rates, or whatever socioeconomic disparity is the new it term for the moment. The problems we have as a country are the problems we created as a country. The quality of your education is directly proportionate to your access to college, your access to jobs, your access to the future. Until we live in a world where every kid can get a high-quality education, no matter where they live or the color of their skin, there are things we can do on a macro level. School funding should not be decided by property taxes or some funky economic equation where rich kids continue to benefit from state aid while poor kids are continuously having food and resources taken from their mouths. Governors, senators, mayors, city council members, if we're going to call public education, then it should be just that. Otherwise, we should call it what it really is: poverty insurance. Public education, keeping poor kids poor since 1954. If we really, as a country, believe that education is the great equalizer, then it should be just that: equal and equitable. Until then, there's no democracy in our democratic education. On a meso level, historically speaking, the education of the Black and brown child has always depended on the philanthropy of others. And unfortunately, today, it still does. If your son or daughter, or niece or nephew, or neighbor, or little Timmy down the street goes to an affluent school, challenge your school committee to adopt an impoverished school or an impoverished classroom. Close the divide by engaging in communication and relationships that matter. When resources are shared, they're not divided, they're multiplied. And on a micro level, if you're a human being, donate time, money, resources, opportunities, whatever is in your heart. There are websites like Donors Choose that recognize the disparity and actually want to do something about it. What is a carpenter with no tools? What is an actress with no stage? What is a scientist with no laboratory? What is a doctor with no equipment? I'll tell you, they're my kids. Shouldn't they be your kids too? Thank you.
I am literally, I've lost my breath. I just want to thank Candace Sumner. She's an educator and an activist out of Boston for her kind words and her truth through power words and her experiences. And I hope that helped you understand where I believe we are right now. We talked about it yesterday. Sometimes I try to identify images for us and conversations for us that validate our conversations. Because we were very clear that after our mayor said that he wants to be a part of this educational process for our young people, I don't know what that plan looks like, but Candace, as an educator, outlined what's really important. But until we understand the real truths of what education is and how it was established and why it was established, we can't realistically get to viable solutions. And as one of the callers said yesterday, if indeed you're going to have people on that are leaders, that have responsibilities to the people and for the position in which they hold, why can't we have the real conversations? It doesn't have to be this argumentative type of thing. We can agree to disagree, but you can be open to listening to what I believe the reals are. And again, remember, we know that it's shaped from your experience. Somebody might not ever understand what is important to you and how you say the education should be because they don't have that experience. But if we just say that we really want it to be better for everyone, we will calm down our emotions and we will remove those dynamics and we will listen, not just hear, to what will make it better for us. I'm about to go to the lines, but I want to open up with a quote from Horace Mann, and everyone knows. Horace Mann was part of the Whig Party. I know you all remember we talked about Whig way back in government class in school, but he was a politician, part of the Whig Party out of Massachusetts. He really wanted to support the public education, and quote, he stated, and as Mrs. Sumner alluded to a piece of it, education then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is the great equalizer of the conditions of men, the balance, will of the social machine. Education is the equalizer. So, if you are, and I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to just go to the lines, okay? We had this conversation all the time in my household growing up, my brother and myself. And so his whole position was, you know, he was historic HBCU. Shout out to all of you all who've attended HBCUs. Went to Grambling, amazing experience. I, on the other hand, was always focused on the business side of it. I'm shocked to even say this now, but when I was in the 9th grade, I was just fixated on Donald Trump at that time, The Art of the Deal, The Art of the Comeback, and so I read all of his books, and all I wanted to do was be accepted to the Wharton School, and that's what I wanted to do. Okay? So we would have the conversation. He's like, well, Collette, you need to go to the HBCU. And actually, my counselors I went to King. Shout out to King. I went to King. My counselors at King were trying to get me to go to Florida A&M, their business school. And they had a great positioning. And I said, okay, that's great. But what they didn't know is that I'm always going to do research. And so in the midst of you trying to convince me to go to Florida A&M, FAMU's business school, the sister who started the business school graduated from Wharton. So I was like, well, all that's great, but I need to go to the source. So if I can get into the source, then that shapes the education that I get. And the truth be told, and my brother and I would talk about it, and I said, you can come out with a 4.0 GPA, you can be the senior class president, you can be Mr. Everything on the campus, but I promise you, with everything being equal, and we're standing there for a position, they're going to pick me all day long with my 2.3 GPA and no parts of a club, community, or any of that. And that was just the comparative. I said, because Wharton School of Business, University of Pennsylvania versus Grambling universities. Because certain institutions are known as the founding of education. And so that's where all the elite folks went. Did you get where she was going? Mayor Duggan said, we've lost 32,000 people to schools outside of the city. That's to her example. So the educational institutions, those who are identified, those that Dan Gilbert referenced, the Yales, the Harvards, the University of Pennsylvania's, those are the institutions where the powerful and the elite sent their children. And it wasn't about an education. It was to understand the system and to create networks and to know how to communicate. I told you all, my dean told me, Collette, we don't care what grade you get. That's not what this is about. If we didn't think that you could master the academics, if that was important, you would have never got accepted. You're supposed to learn how to think and to network and to learn how to communicate. And so to me, that's the true essence of education. So that whatever it is you read, you can get to what the real truths of it are, and then to be able to move and govern associate accordingly, and then to be able to know how to speak to people, to be able to know to get into a room and to know who's in the room. You're never supposed to go somewhere and you don't know who's in the room. You don't ever supposed to be in a space where you can't shape the conversation. No matter what they're talking about, you should be able to shape and bend that conversation specific to what it is that you want to discuss. That's what I was taught. For me, that's the education equalizer. Not going into the institutions because you're dealing with the books that they gave you, you're dealing with the thought that they gave you, you're dealing with the doctrine that they've given you, and then you want to make that applicable to a system that wasn't accepting and established for you. How does that work? You'll consistently be the proverbial hamster on the wheel, running and running and running because it doesn't fit everyone. And I'm not saying don't go to school. I'm not saying that. But you better be realistic about why you're going and what you hope to get and what the return is going to be because of it. Now, that is it. I will go to the lines now. Thank you so much for your patience, and amazing morning to you.
How you doing?
Amazing, 8 Mile. How are you?
All right. First, we got to give a shout-out to TV33.
Absolutely.
Comcast 91, WHPR, Island Park, Detroit. We give a shout-out to Mr. Watkins,
yes.
Mr. Hill.
Sure.
Mr. Jones, Ms. Perryman.
Yes.
Mr. Ramsey, Ms. Mike McIntyre, and all the other TV show hosts on TV33.
Yes.
Thank you. I want to make sure you have an amazing day.
I do.
And going to the point that you brought up yesterday about our mayor, state of the city speech, I would like for your listeners to think about the personal comment that he made about himself and about his family.
Okay.
Meaning, if you know the history of the city since 1849 to 2018, everybody that looked like me and you, Ms. Ramsey, did not have the opportunity in the city limits of the city of Detroit to have the experience that Duggan family had. Okay. Because he made a comment about a church.
Excuse me.
Holy Demon. Okay?
Sure.
He said in 1920, between 1930 and 1920, a family member of his was able to make a plaque at a Catholic church.
I thought that was his mother, actually. And I thought he said it was his
Okay.
mother who
His
saved.
mother or his
Well, let me
grandmother.
help.
Well, that's the point.
And let me help you before you continue. And what he specifically said is that she worked hard and saved her money and was able to convince or donate that to the church to create the Stations of the Cross. And so he was letting us know, he was trying to create a history that he has always been a part of the fiber of this community that never left. But please continue.
Thank you very much for being descriptive,
Sure.
because you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Meaning, when it comes down to people like me and you,
Okay.
when it comes down to people who procreated with people who look like me and you, when it comes down to people who look close to me and you, we did not have that opportunity to do what we wanted to do anywhere in the city of Detroit. Because from 1849 until today, this is one of the most polarized, segregated communities up north. So it's funny how somebody's family got a chance to enjoy the total essence of living in the city of Detroit. The other example is the Ford Foundation. Meaning, if you was ever part of the Ford Foundation, or you ever looked like you could be a family member of the Ford Foundation, you know, another example, since 1849 to 2018, you can enjoy all the aspects of this community. But guess what, Ms. Ramsey?
What?
You look like me, I look like you. We don't get that.
Well, let me just say this, and if I can interject, I believe that I'm going to disagree a little bit with you. Normally, I don't do that. I'm going to disagree, only because we were able to do what we wanted to do. And I'm going to put this out here, and I thought about it yesterday, and a lot of people, and I don't even know if people thought about it this way. Let me tell you, as much as people could have taken exception to Kwame Malik Kilpatrick and his role as mayor in this city, you didn't have the foreclosures going on. You didn't have the water being shut off. You didn't have the issues that we're having now with the staunch business of this city, as they say, to bring in revenue. We didn't. Everybody, and I'm not saying you all can say, but Collette, you know, that's why the city ran out of money, and that's not why the city ran out of money. That's not why. We were living and sustaining ourselves, and there was a level of consideration for people that looked like people here. No one has said and complained. I said this yesterday. When the recession hit in 2008, the value for homes dropped. Again, I said if you had an $80,000 house and it dropped down to $20,000, but you were still taxed for the $80,000 value. No one changed the reassessment to adjust your taxes. No one. The treasurer, no one did it. The elected officials didn't talk about it. No one said, wait a minute, why are the, and forgive me, there might be a few organizations I know that were out here championing it, but I'm talking about from a major leadership role that could have effectuated a change that afforded people to not lose their homes. We weren't having those conversations. And so if you all don't think that that was systematic, I don't know what you're thinking. Because we had a time and space, but see, again, that's that bait and switch in the narrative that then you get tied into whatever it looked like to say that Kwame Kilpatrick was a bad mayor, and so we need to get rid of him when Kwame Kilpatrick isn't doing anything other than what all the other mayors prior to him did. The Wayne County executive wasn't doing anything else. They just don't get caught. And the truth is, to this day, Kwame Malik Kilpatrick would still be out if they would have just paid the money back every month. That's a whole different conversation. I have a problem with that. I just think that I don't even understand why. If I was his wife, I would have just put money aside and sent it into the city to keep you all free and to keep you all living and to keep on doing what you're doing because you got a fresh start. But I'm just talking about the governance of where we were as a city. We looked like each other. We ran the government. It doesn't mean that it was as effective or efficient, quote unquote, whatever government is, but we didn't have what we have now. So please go ahead.
I totally understand that. Now, mind you, you're going from just 10 years. I really want to go back to 1990.
We can go back to the 1800s.
No. It's just a point, dude. I apologize, Ms. Ramsey.
No.
The point is in 1990, there was a restaurant downtown Detroit called Ted's Restaurant.
Okay.
Across the street from Ted's Restaurant was this abandoned building.
Okay.
This abandoned building was like 25 to 30 stories. It stayed abandoned the whole time.
Okay.
This was when Woodward was abandoned. This was when there was just a couple businesses on Woodward.
Okay.
Now, at this time, this is when it was the height of people in the city of Detroit. If they got a college education and wind up getting money to get property, they moved, didn't come back. If they wind up getting a city job, they got a city job.
Okay.
When they retired, they left, didn't come back. If they spent money to send their kids to go out of school, out of town, they left, didn't come back.
Okay.
So in this time, in 1990, that's when our city became a shell. I mean, from 1990 to like recently, it's still 1/10 of the city is abandoned property. That means if it's 142 miles, that's 14 square miles of abandoned property.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is this. I classify myself as a generational resident.
Okay.
That's the term that they just don't use, that Horace Sheffield put out here publicly. He just don't use that term, but that's the people he's talking about, the people that stay. But there's so many people that got their education, they got their game, and got their initiative about what it is to be in this country from this city. They left.
Okay.
They were gone for years. So when they was gone for years, all this abandoned property, business is business.
Okay.
So you can't fault nobody that came into this city and made money. Because I'm looking at all the people since I've been back in this community off and on since the late 90s that left, didn't come back, and don't care.
Okay. I mean, so that's the point. And so
back, you started caring.
Okay.
That's why so many generational residents got mad love with you.
Well, you know what? Well, let's just see. And so we'll kick that segment off. I'm about to go to the next line before we have to go into a break and enter into the top of the hour. And we'll see if everyone else has that same sentiment. I mean, I just have a problem with the notion, the ideology. We talked about yesterday how ideas are institutionalized through power. Let me say that to you again. Ideas are institutionalized through power. So I just have a problem that we have a mindset that we cannot do certain things. Whether we do them or not is a whole different conversation. I just have a problem that we believe that we can't. So I appreciate your call. Let me get to the next line. Absolutely. Make today.
That's what you're here for.
Absolutely. Have an awesome day. Thank you so much. Let me get to the next line. Thank you so much for your patience. I appreciate it. Good morning to you. Caller, are you there?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, this is board member, President Javette Hawkins Williams. I've been listening to your show for probably almost 2 years. Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you, Board President.
And it's not the new board, it's the old board.
Okay.
I wanted to say Dan Gilbert will never build on an unknown foundation. Remember what I said. Dan Gilbert would never build on an unknown foundation.
Yes. Yes. Did you all get what she said? I don't think you I don't think you all got what she said.
Childhood.
Yeah.
The first thing we talk about is, babysitting service. We need somebody to watch our kids. That's where we're falling short.
Yes.
Brain development is key. The world runs on economics and psychology.
Yes. Yes.
And if the mind isn't right, nothing goes right.
Come on.
So we can make all excuses about we didn't have any money. The city never ran out of money.
Right.
The school district never ran out of money. It was a plan. It was a plan to move everyone out of the city of Detroit.
Come on.
Take them away from the school district.
Come on.
Come on. Go ahead and give me your feedback, and then I can discuss something further too.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you calling in, and thank you so much for watching. And I think, again, you hit it on the head, and I think a lot of times we just need the validation. So what you provided as a validator, if you will, you all get that. It's a plan. Everything is a plan. We're always reactive to everything that is proactive. And the truth is, even when we elect and select people in positions, we don't even understand what has been established to even put them in there. Do you get it? And then we, majority, don't have a mindset to even understand how to leverage that. We don't understand that. And then we get mad because everyone else doesn't do their best for us. They don't know. Did you get that? They weren't taught that. Did you hear what Mrs. Sumner said? That the educational system has historically been established by the powers that be to tell you to defer to them, to let them teach you that what we tell you to do is what it is. What we tell you to believe in based on this book is what it is. And so you don't have any other thoughts outside of it. And the best way you master what they tell you, then that's how you get a good grade. And then you jump out into this world and say, well, I've jumped through all the hoops and I've done what I'm supposed to do. And now I'm supposed to be able to get a job. And I'm supposed to, I'm not supposed to live in the communities in which I've come, especially from those that we have been struggling in. No, you're supposed to get some money and then you move out. So you move out and then you take your kids out and then you put them in the suburban schools because that's a better experience for them. And so that's what we do. And so we all walk away from the base. And I commend everyone who stayed. But I truly believe that the residents who have stayed honestly did not know what to do. Don't know what to do. And you're still waiting for an elected official to do something to save you. That's just what I believe. And then you all, please, you can call in and say, Collette, that's not true. We knew what to do. They didn't give us a chance. If you tell me that, boo. Did you just hear what you said? We knew what to do, but they, who's they? To develop things downtown, I believe that there are a few groups of people who wanted to do something, but we don't understand how to pull our monies. And prime example, so I was having a conversation with one of the major church leader, let me just say that, and we were getting into a dialogue, and he was talking about how when they had the meetings downtown, he was asking some Caucasian people to invite them into the meeting. I said, did I hear what you just said? So you're asking them to invite you into the meeting, to pull the chair out, to let you come into the meeting so you can hear what their plans are for downtown because you think they're going to include you in the plan? Who respects you? That's not how this works. That's not how this works. You have power from the monies that you get in tithe and authoring every Sunday. You're part of an ecumenical group where you got 20 ministers in there who get monies every Sunday. But yet you're going to a traditional bank and they're giving you no money off of those monies. You can't get a loan from the bank and you don't understand how to put your monies together to then create resources and do development on your own. But then you think that now you're mad and then you want to boycott on them because they're not bringing you to the table. We were never brought to the table, everyone. It was never supposed to work for us. We were always supposed to be in slavery, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. That's why you see the rise in the prison system. Just like they have a count, they've created the cost per pupil for school education. What is it? $7,000 some dollars per year per pupil. They've considered and figured out the cost for the prison population. How much? And I think it's what, $30,000 or something per year to house someone in prisons. They figured it out. Our problem is that we don't think. As a caller said, you all realize that your mind and your brain are different. You didn't really know that, right? There's a difference between your mind and your brain. We're going to go there. We're going someplace this morning. All the lines are lit. I'm up against a break. We're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to continue having this conversation because we're going to be better because of it. We're going to learn how to think and become richer. Let me say that. So don't go anywhere. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.